Hello there, you're watching India Global on NDTV. I'm Maha Siddiqui. Over the next half an hour, we'll take you through all the major international stories of the week, stories that matter to India. But first, the headlines. India and UAE ink 3 pacts in Prime Minister's Abu Dhabi stopover. Key de-dollarization agreement allows trade in Rupee and Dirham. India's UPI to now work in the UAE. In France too, there will be UPI now. India begins to work on getting 26 more Rafales, this time the naval version. 3 Scorpion-class submarines and helicopter engine technology transfer agreements signed. This as India and France celebrate 25 years of strategic partnership. G20 Sherpas meet in Hampi to work on the draft for the leaders' declaration at the Delhi summit. India's Sherpa Amitabh Kant expresses optimism that the final communique will be successfully presented even in the face of continued differences over the Ukraine war. Sweden is the newest NATO entrant as Turkey drops its year-long opposition, but Ukraine will have to wait longer. NATO statement says Ukraine's entry will happen at the right time. India successfully launches its moon mission Chandrayaan-3. The lunar landing is expected by August end. Some key transactional decisions were made at the Prime Minister's stopover in Abu Dhabi on Saturday. Prime Minister Modi held talks with UAE President Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, after which the central banks of India and the UAE signed 2 memoranda of understanding to promote the use of local currencies for transactions, which means trade being done in Rupee and Dirham. The 2 sides also decided to ink India's UPI with the instant payment platform IPP of UAE. This is expected to make fund transfer fast, convenient, safe and cost-effective. The education ministries of the 2 countries and IIT Delhi also signed an MOU to establish a branch of the Premier Institute in Abu Dhabi. Prime Minister Modi flew to Abu Dhabi on Saturday morning for an approximately 6 to 7 hour visit after concluding his France tour. Now, the government's engagement with the Muslim or the Arab world has been stepped up in the recent past. In fact, over the last 30 days alone, if you take a look, the Prime Minister has visited Egypt, while the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval has hosted Saudi Arabia's top official, Mohammed bin Abdul Karim Al Isa, in New Delhi. The Prime Minister had stopped in Egypt after his visit to the United States and now stopping in the UAE after his visit to France. Let me go across to our guest who's joining us on the show now, Navdeep Suri, Distinguished Fellow ORF and former Indian Envoy to the UAE. Many thanks for joining us here on NDTV. Ambassador Suri, first of all, we are seeing some move towards utilization of local currencies for trade bypassing the dollar. Is this likely to set off reshaping of global economic dynamics? How do you see this? How significant is it for India and UAE to be trading in the Rupee and Dirham now?
I wouldn't go as far as reshaping the global dynamic of trade right now, but I think it's important to keep in mind that UAE is India's 3rd largest trading partner after the US and China. It's actually a larger trading partner for India than Japan and Germany and France and UK and many other big economies. Our trade last year was $85 billion. And it's also the first country with which we signed the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. So when we look at the size of our trade with UAE, the fact that it's our 2nd largest destination of exports after the United States, I think the local currency trade is going to be a big benefit to business community from both sides. It takes away some of the unnecessary costs when you are dealing in dollars or other currencies. And I think it'll give a further boost to India-UAE trade and hopefully create a precedent or a model that India can then extend to other countries, to other trading partners, and therefore expand on that point that you started with about a global impact.
Can you also explain to us, Ambassador Suri, why the relationship with the UAE has set off on a new trajectory in the recent past? If we look at the Prime Minister Modi, that is his visits alone, this was his 5th visit to the UAE.
Well, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the sheer effort and energy that the Prime Minister has put into this relationship has had a transformational impact over the last 8 years. Remember, when he first went to UAE in August of 2015, it was the first visit by any Indian Prime Minister for 34 years in a country that's pretty important from our standpoint. So I think, that relationship that he has established on a very one-to-one basis with Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the President of UAE, makes a big difference. The momentum will continue because Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed will come to India for the G20 summit as a special invitee of India as the host. And Prime Minister has also indicated that he might be going again to UAE in December for COP28, which the UAE is hosting. So that momentum of high-level exchanges, I think what it does is you might have many agreements, but it really gives a focus on implementation of those agreements. It creates new avenues in which the two countries can cooperate. And for me, when I was looking at the joint statement and other documents that came out, I think for me the most significant thing was that the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, which is the world's second largest sovereign wealth fund and has been investing into India in key sectors like highways, like telecommunications, like renewable energy, has actually announced that it will open an office in Gift City. This is very rare, and it's a very positive signal of their intent to double their investments in India in sectors that really make a big impact for us.
My final question to you, sir, is with regards to how you read the government's move to reach out to the Muslim world.
Well, in a sense, I would say it's a rediscovery of countries that have always been in our near neighborhood. Somewhere in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, we took our eye off the ball. We focused a lot more since the 90s on our Look East policy towards the ASEAN nations. But remember, our links with these countries go back centuries, whether it is with Aden or with Sharjah or with Basra or with Dubai. And their connection with the Gujarati coast, the Kutch coast, and with the Malabar coast. These trading links have existed for since at least 1,000 years, if not more. And so I think it's really important that those vital links, from the point of view of trade, investment, energy security, people-to-people cooperation, the fact that we'll now have IIT Delhi with a campus in Abu Dhabi, all of that really adds up to a very dynamic and a very vital relationship that India is building once again with countries in this region.
Navdeep Suri, thanks for speaking with NDTV.
Thank you.
And staying with the same story, in fact, I had spoken with India's ambassador currently to the UAE, Sanjay Sudhir, and I began by asking him about trade and investment, considering that India and the UAE signed the trade deal not too long ago in a record time. So Sanjay Sudhir there, and this is the question I started off with. Let's listen into his answer.
Prime Minister Modi's 5th visit to the UAE in the last 9 years. He was here last in June when he met His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. Trade, as you know, UAE is already our 3rd largest trading partner, our 2nd largest export destination. It's also the largest source of investment from the whole of the Arab world. And keeping all these things in mind, and to give this economic relationship a further boost, CEPA was signed last year. We've just completed 1 year of implementation of CEPA, and the results are really encouraging. Bilateral trade has shot up by about 19%, and for the last financial year, 22-23, bilateral trade actually stood at about $85 billion. You know, in comparison to other countries in the GCC, UAE accounts for 46% of our trade with the GCC and about 63% of our exports to the GCC. Investment relations are also very strong. Last year itself, UAE invested about $3.5 billion. And that makes it the fourth largest FDI source for India. This year, they've invested about $500 million in Lenskart and another $300 million in Cube Highways. Energy relationship, is very strong. They are the fourth largest supplier of crude, second largest supplier of both LNG as well as LPG.
Well, the UAE will be hosting COP28 later this year. Are there any specifics that are in the realms of discussion, especially with regards to climate justice, climate finance? How is India taking up those issues?
We have been working very closely on climate action and COP28 related issues because it's a very good coincidence that India happens to be presiding over G20 this year and the UAE over COP28. And our effort is to develop some kind of a mutually supportive relationship between COP28 and G20 and also make sure that some of the issues of concern to the global south get factored in. And this includes clearly finding a solution on climate finance, something which has been promised for so many years, but nothing has happened. We also are giving very special focus on a fair and just energy transition and to focus on people's lives and livelihood. These are very important parts of the discussion between the two countries.
In the recent past, in the Gulf region itself and the Muslim world, UAE seems to be the most forthcoming. What is this closeness of relationship based on?
Well, it is a very special relationship between our two countries. You'll recall that in 2017, when His Highness Sheikh Mohamed visited India as chief guest for our Republic Day celebrations, we also signed a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement. And last year, we signed a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. Last year in February, the leaders also unveiled a vision statement. And this vision statement is some kind of a roadmap for our relationship for the several years to come. So there is something very special about the relationship. I've already given you the numbers showing that UAE has a very, I would say, a very special place, whether it's our trade, investments, or even our people-to-people relationship. The largest Indian community, the largest Indian nationals anywhere in the world is actually in the UAE. And if you look at the whole of GCC statistics, about 40% of Indian nationals in the GCC are actually in this country. If you just go back in terms of investments, in March this year, the first India-UAE investment summit for J&K took place in Srinagar, hosted by the Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha. And so many of the top UAE companies were there, the big investors were there. In fact, announcement was made by MR Group to invest about 500 crores in a shopping mall and a multi-purpose tower in Srinagar. So it is a very special relationship. We have been working closely in the United Nations Security Council as well, where we overlapped for 1 year in 2022 in UNSC. So there was very close cooperation between the two countries. We have been working together on issues like counter-terrorism and other issues. So it is a special relationship.
Ambassador Sudhir May, thanks for speaking with NDTV. Now, India and France have announced a raft of defense cooperation projects, including the joint development of jet and helicopter engines and the construction of 3 Scorpion submarines for Indian Navy. According to that is, in fact, following talks between Prime Minister Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron on Friday. The two strategic partners also expressed commitment to cooperate in the co-development and co-production of advanced defense technologies, including for the benefit of third countries, a decision seen as a reflection of the growing bilateral defense ties. Meanwhile, French aerospace company Dassault Aviation has said that India has selected 26 Rafale fighter jets for the Navy after a successful trial campaign. The Defense Acquisition Council, chaired by Rajnath Singh, had granted the acceptance of necessity for the procurement of 26 Rafale marine aircraft for the Indian Navy on Thursday.
अपनी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप की 25वीं वर्षगांठ मना रहे हैं। बीते 25 वर्षों के मजबूत आधार पर हम आने वाले 25 वर्षों के लिए रोड मैप तैयार कर रहे हैं।
Our Prime Minister is really interested in ensuring that India is an investment hub for everyone.
I think he's doing the right thing. Like I was saying, he's taking a lot of good decisions. He's using space for his people, and that's what you should do.
Well, and Prime Minister Modi was the guest of honour at the Bastille Day Parade, a day celebrated with fervour in France on the 14th of July, marking the start of the French Revolution almost 200 years ago. An Indian tri-services contingent marched down the Champs-Élysées as well.
Indian Army, Air Force and Navy soldiers marching down the Champs-Élysées, reviving an abiding link between India and France, an association that may be forgotten in India but never in this country. On Bastille Day, France's National Day, India was the guest of honour with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the chief guest, as both nations celebrate 25 years of strategic ties. And our Air Force's Rafale fighters flew overhead. In the run-up to the much-awaited moment, the josh was high.
As you can see, they are hard at it, getting ready, and it is quite a show over here. They are by far and away the most impressive of all the marching contingents that we've seen. We've got the Indian Air Force as well, who are equally impressive over there, but they are getting absolutely ready for what's going to be an absolutely fantastic parade.
अभी जो प्रैक्टिस के बाद हम मार्च के लिए तैयार हैं और मेरी रेजिमेंट बिल्कुल तैयार है मार्च करने के लिए और जोश पूरा हाई है.
At the end of the events, France's President Macron and Prime Minister Modi met the officers commanding the Indian marching contingent. France's National Day or Bastille Day occupies a special place in French consciousness. This day commemorates the storming of the Bastille prison in 1789 during the French Revolution. 74,000 Indian soldiers were killed in action in the First World War, many fighting in France and Western Europe. Indian soldiers returned to fight in the Second World War, a massive contribution against a global enemy, Nazi fascism. On the Champs-Élysées, with Pooja Arya, Vishnu Shom for NDTV.
And now a quick wrap of some of the other international stories that we've been tracking. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar meets top Chinese diplomat Wang Yi. Jaishankar and Wang Yi discuss issues related to peace and tranquility at the border. The meeting takes place on the sidelines of the ASEAN Regional Forum Ministerial meeting. US President Joe Biden says that the Russian President Vladimir Putin has already lost the war with Ukraine, and how it ends will depend on Putin. The World Health Organization has classified aspartame, an artificial sweetener found in diet soda and countless other foods, as a possible cause of cancer. However, a separate expert group looking at the same evidence said that it still considers the sugar substitute safe in limited quantities. The IMF has given an approval for a $3 billion standby arrangement for Pakistan. The announcement comes after Pakistan Finance Minister said that Pakistan had received $1 billion from the UAE as part of its commitment to help it receive the IMF bailout package. Hollywood actors joined screenwriters in a historic industry-stopping strike. The day after nominations for the 2023 Emmy Awards were announced, they officially declared a strike effective just after midnight. The Actors Union represents around 160,000 performers, including film and television actors worldwide. Well, thanks for joining us today. See you again next week, leaving you with visuals of the successful launch of Chandrayaan 3, India's moon mission.
Real-time programs activated. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Lift-off normal.
Here we have a majestic lift-off of LTM-3 M4 rocket carrying India's prestigious Chandrayaan 3 spacecraft.
200 stages are separated.